Hey YouTubers, I wanted to do a little bit more information on the S10 5.3 T-5 swap. I managed to, actually with a great deal of help from Richard, he found two hoses at O'Reilly's that had the proper size and the proper bends on each end to Frankenstein together some radiator hoses for the S10. So I was able to get the radiator cooling fans, upper hose fabricated. See if you guys can see this thing, because I had to have a specific bend that was way tighter than the Silverado Tahoe hose, because what I used coming out of the water neck was the Tahoe hose. Then it comes over and mates to a who knows what hose. I'm trying to get the part number for you, but it comes over and has a real sharp bend. I don't know if you guys can see in the dark, but there's plenty of room. You know what I mean? The hose is not touching the belt or anything like that. Then on the bottom hose, I had to use two 90 degrees, one with a 1 3/4 opening and one with 1.5 inches that had a I think it was a 1.5 inch coupler in the middle. So it's pretty Frankensteined up, but it is together and it's running. We tried everything we could think of. We shortened the throttle cable. Richard ended up shortening the throttle cable for me so the pedal works. We ran the codes on the machine or on the computer, because it's in limp mode. Okay, so I sent a note to the tuner who unlocked my ECU, or electronic control module, whatever. He undid my computer, disabled the VATs, and did some changes that I requested. But the stupid thing is in limp mode. So I sent him the note saying, hey, we fired up the 5.3, fired right up. It's not really throwing codes. What's the problem here? Because it's in limp mode. He said I needed to go to the blue connector, pin number 32, and ground it. Well, I don't want to make anybody sick. We're going to walk over here. If you can see that green wire right there, that goes to pin number 32 on the blue connector at the computer, and it is grounded, verified grounded, to that central grounding position. We verified the ground is good, but the engine's still in limp mode. So another suggestion we had was to make sure there wasn't a problem with the throttle position sensor. So we did work on that and test that. Still in limp mode. So, frustrated much, I'm getting ready to call tonight, because I've had this thing running first time for 10 minutes, second time for 15 minutes, and I can't get it. Either it's not burping the air out of the block, or I'm not getting coolant flow. I haven't figured out what the problem is yet. I don't have a functional temperature gauge hooked up to it yet, so I'm not going to run it any longer than that in, trying to get coolant flow, because I can't tell how hot the engine's getting. I thought I could just visually keep an eye on the coolant in the radiator and try to burp the air out of it and get it to flow. The factory temperature rating is, I believe it's 186 degrees on the thermostat. I don't know that if the problem is maybe I haven't let it run long enough to open up the thermostat fully, but neither the top nor the bottom radiator hose is really showing any heat at all. Even letting it run 15 minutes. Now keep in mind here, temperature at the time I was letting it run was probably like 40 degrees when, know, real filled 27 degrees. I don't know, it's pretty cold. But I was letting it run up to 15 minutes at a time, and I'm not getting any temperature in the upper or lower radiator hoses, and I have no visual flow through the radiator, so I just had to shut it down. When we first ran the codes, the absolute only code that it ran was the MAF, which we didn't have the mass airflow set up. It wasn't even plugged in. So we just basically shoved it into the front of the throttle body and plugged in the MAF to make the code go away, and it did absolutely nothing to help it being in limp mode. So at this point, I'm gonna have to send another, I will just have to send another note to the tuner or the person that unlocked my computer, see if he has any suggestions on what needs to be done. I just kind of giving you guys a little bit of a view of how absolutely close the engine is to the cooling fans. Like I have the, see if you can see that, I have the Intrepid dual cooling fan set up, and sorry, trying to freehand. I have the Intrepid dual cooling fan set up, and if I didn't have all that extra plastic trimmed out of the middle of it, I don't think the pulley on the water pump would clear. And then over here, you can't really hardly see down in there, but look, I have about a quarter to not quite a ½ inch clearance between the center of the power steering pulley nubby thing and the cooling fan electric motor. So yeah, this thing with this motor 2 1/4 forward, it really crunched things together way more than I was expecting it to be. And sorry about that. It's just really frustrating, but I did finally get the radiator hoses hooked up, which is a big money saver. So instead of spending $150 plus having that radiator reconfigured, it was only like $25 or $27 worth of hoses at the O'Reilly's. And I did write down the hose numbers just in case I have an accident and poke a hole in one of these or rupture a hose, I can recreate this setup. But I mean, it fires right up. I have no complaints with that, but I can't get the coolant to flow at this point, and it's in limp mode. So I guess it's just part of doing the hot rod thing, you know, one step at a time, or one step forward, 2 steps back. It always seems like there's something trying to go wrong. So anyway, that's where I'm at. Keep in mind, guys, I don't have my cold air intake on for a proper mass airflow reading. I don't have my O2s hooked up yet, but the engine hasn't even run long enough to throw an O2 code. So I don't know. I'm totally at a loss as what's going on with this thing being in the limp mode. I am going to try to, again, get in touch with that tuner. Worst case scenario, I may have to take it to a local person, have them hook up to it, and I'm just leery of doing that because a lot of guys around here charge outrageous fees for what they call a tuning session. I don't need anything tuned. I just need it to be pulled out of limp mode. So anyway, I'll send the original computer unlocker another note, tell him that grounding pin number 32 was not successful, and hopefully we'll be able to get some more headway on this thing, because I'd really like to get it out of this garage and see how it drives down the road. So anyway, thanks again, you guys. Keep watching. I'll try to do some better videos.